What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to be taking a look at a new floor rules update in the Transformers trading card game. They've got an update to the floor rules. There are really two or three, depending how you look at it, changes that we need to look at. These are only relevant if you're going to proper tournaments. If you're sitting around in your local shop or at home, house rules. Do whatever you gosh darned well like. But if you are heading off to tournaments, these are important rules that you definitely need to know. So first of all, the end of match procedure. What happens if a time limit is reached, but there has been no winner crowned? In the Transformers trading card game, nice and simply, whoever runs out of Transformers loses. Whoever still has Transformers remaining wins. If it's single game, first one to run out of Transformers loses. If it's best of three, first one to run out of Transformers twice loses. But what if you haven't had enough time? Now, it used to be that you would essentially have one extra turn. So the player that was playing would finish their turn, there would be one more turn, boom, have a look at the tiebreakers. Not the case anymore. The new rule is that you keep going until all characters are tapped. And this evens things up a little bit. Because let's say, for argument's sake, you get one extra turn. Well, if you're playing a two-wide deck, let's say you're playing double Optimus Prime, then your one turn is going to be with a big bad character who can do a lot of damage and a lot of good things. If, however, you are playing Devastator, assuming in this example you have yet to combine, then the amount of value you're getting from one extra turn, i.e. one extra attack, is significantly lower. It gives a little bit of an advantage to taller teams rather than wider teams, because that one extra turn you can do a lot more. The new rule is you keep going until all characters are tapped at the end of a turn. Unless, of course, somebody wins the game in the meantime. That means that if you're a 6-wide deck playing against a 2-wide deck, your opponent's characters are all tapped, and you can then have like 4 attacks in one go. And that's all right. That's fine. It means that you're able to get the value out of your wide team rather than just being in a taller team. Now, there was a note from Scott Van Essen here which explained things as well. Previously, there was one extra turn of play after turn 0. In our new rules, after turn 0 is complete, play continues until all characters are untapped. This change gives equal impact to wide teams compared to tall teams by alleviating the imbalance that can occur when the time cutoff arbitrarily falls across our turn progression. In our new procedure, every team is able to utilize its full capacity. As far as I'm concerned, that has got to be a good thing. Now, the tiebreaker procedure, there's no such thing as an unintentional draw in Transformers. You can have an intentional draw, but there is no such thing as an unintentional draw. Unless you agree to tie the game, there will be a winner. So essentially, here's a new tie-breaking procedure. Number 1, remaining health. The player with the largest amount of remaining health left. Now, of course, that does mean that you can potentially try and compare stars to health and make a team with the greatest amount of health remaining. Give yourself a little bit of an advantage, but then again, planning for a tiebreaker scenario when building your deck is only good if you can do it without hurting the deck. I mean, one of the cool things is that if you look at a card like Energy Pack, which goes and gives you an extra 4 health, that will actually help you out massively in a tie-breaking procedure, because all of a sudden your characters have more health, which is the first tiebreaker. But don't go and play some suboptimal character just because it will get you an advantage in a tiebreaker situation. That would be slightly silly. If this is tied, each player counts the total number of stars of their characters on the battlefield. Whoever's got the highest total stars winning remains. In theory, taking out star cards, you're going to have the same amount of stars as your opponent to begin the game, so presumably whoever's got the most left at the end is doing a bit better. If that still doesn't work, you go to flip the top 2 cards of your deck, and you keep going if that doesn't give you a winner, seeing who flips the most white battle icons. If you tie, you flip 2 more, and then 2 more, and then 2 more. And you keep doing this either until one person flips the same number of white icons, or it is realised that it will never work. So let's say, for argument's sake, nobody is playing any white icons in their deck. You can flip the cards as often as you like. No one's ever going to flip a white icon. So that would be silly. So we need something else. And then it's just flip a coin. And I know that's a little bit rubbish, but bearing in mind, by the time we get to flipping a coin, what we've done is looked for who has more health remaining. It's tied. Look for who's got more stars remaining. It's tied. Tried to figure it out with white icons. It's tied. So then we have to flip a coin. Incidentally, let's say it's a best of 3 and one player wins game 2 after losing game 1 in extra time, such that essentially time is completely out, but we're tied at 1 game each. You present your teams and decks without sideboarding like you're going to start another game, and then move into the tie-breaking procedure. Cool. Now, what I find very, very interesting, there are a couple of notes from Scott here. First of all, basically saying, look, there is one win condition in Transformers. Yes, I know we had another one introduced in a battle card, but shh, that's not what I'm talking about. Which is not the case in every trading card game. So, because we're fighting along one primary axis, we can objectively judge which player was further ahead. Now, we did mention the previous tie-breaking procedure, which counted the most amount of damage done. The problem was that you would count total amount of damage, including characters in the KO area, but Battle Masters didn't go in the KO area as Battle Masters. They went in there as upgrades, and therefore didn't count, which meant that any deck comprised of Battle Masters, or at least playing Battle Masters, would have an advantage when it went to the tie-breaking procedure in a fairly arbitrary and not particularly fair way. Now, he did talk about, well, why don't we just use orange icons? And apparently they did consider flipping over 2 cards and seeing the most orange icons, rewarding aggression. Went white icons because that was more universally represented. I like this. I don't like the idea that we've got potentially 2 options, aggressive decks or defensive decks, and yet when it gets to a tiebreaker, we're rewarding one kind of deck over another. I think white icons is absolutely the right choice. Good on them. Now, the third change, which I think is a surprisingly big change, is about cards from outside of the game. Now, when it comes to characters from outside the game, look at something like Grimlock, for instance, or Optimus Prime. Both from Wave 2, both at the centre of combiners, both allow you to bring in characters from outside the game. Optimus Prime at the beginning of the game if you're only playing Sentinels, Grimlock when you attack. There's nothing really changing about them. They must be in the possession of the player at the beginning of the match. But battle cards from outside of the game, let's take the example of Unleash Potential and Ancient Wisdom. Although, to be fair, we did actually get a new card in Wave 4, Valuable Contract, which does allow you to grab a star card and put it into your hand from outside the game. They must now be part of your sideboard. It used to be that a battle card from outside of the game could come from outside of the game. You open up your binder, your deck box, whatever it is, grab whatever you want. Now it's got to be part of your sideboard. So when you're putting your battle cards into your sideboard, you've now got to think, which cards might I want to swap into my deck for game 2 of a best of 3? And you need to think, which cards might I wish to bring from outside of the game using cards like Unleash Potential. What this means is something like Unleash Potential. You would be able to just go, right, in this match, I want a Bolt of Lightning. But then in the next match, I want a Leap of Faith. And then in the next match, I want a Heroic Resolve. And all of these would be possible. Not anymore. You can no longer just have as many cards as you like and just pick whatever you want. You've now got to choose which one it is and put it in your sideboard. Remember the rules though, you can only have a total of 3 cards of any description combined between your deck and your sideboard, so it means that something like Leap of Faith would be limited to 3 per deck. There has been a deck been talked about this past week, talking about Unleashed Potential and Ancient Wisdom, and part of the crux of the deck was essentially using them to play as many Leap of Faith as you can get away with. Because if you're bringing cards in from outside of the game, they don't need to adhere to your general deck building rules. So you could, in theory, have 7, 8, 9, 10 Leap of Faith in your deck. That is now no longer possible. There will be an absolute limit of having 3 of them. I said that I'm not a huge fan of this change, and not all the replies I got were particularly polite. I understand why they've done it. This, at some point, is going to lead to a broken deck. I don't know if this deck people have been talking about the last couple days could be broken, but people are already trying it. And clearly the fact that we've got the possibility of bringing in 8, 9, 10 Leap of Faiths into our deck and playing our entire deck every turn, that's clearly a possibility we need to get rid of. I understand why the rule needs to happen, and I know what they've done, why they've done it, and I see that they had to. I just love the idea that I can go, I have got 7 copies of every single star card, and now, based on the particular matchup and the particular situation I'm in at the time, I can now grab the perfect card. Now that you've got to adhere to deck building rules, only 3 in total, and that you can only have 10 cards in your sideboard, that means that, yeah, boo. But I do understand. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know what you think about all of these changes. Do you think they're big? Do you think they're relevant? Do you think they're going to change anything? Do you agree with them? And any other questions you can think of that you'd like to answer. Go nuts in the comment section, but please do remember the rules. Be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we can talk Transformers and Keyforge and Pokemon and whatever games we want, frankly. And do please consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would you? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.